First of all, it's when the lights come on, the freaks come out at night. So, when they come on, it's time to shine.
You're listening to the From the Pink Seats podcast, powered by the State of Louisville Network.
Welcome back into another episode of From the Pink Seats. State of Louisville Podcast Network is who brings the show to you. I am Jacob Lane alongside my co-host Matt McGavick, and we've got a great show, one we've been teasing the last few days on social media, but an interview that I'm extremely excited for.
Yeah, today we're joined by former Louisville tight end Ean Pfeifer. He talk a little bit about his preparation for the NFL draft, what his 2 seasons here at Louisville have been like, and it's a good interview on deck for you guys. I'm excited.
Absolutely. All right, without further ado, let's move into it and bring Ian into the show. Joining From the Pink Seats podcast is former Louisville football tight end and now NFL draft hopeful Ean Pfeifer. Ian, welcome into the show. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, guys. How are you?
We are hanging in there, man. We are not preparing for the NFL draft on our end, so our life is probably a little bit less stressful than yours. But just kind of tell me, man, what's life been like since wrapping up the season back in December?
Yeah, so after the season, I came back home to Bentonville, Arkansas. And this is where I chose to train. Obviously, COVID was pretty tough on everyone. So I made the decision that I wanted to be home for training and kind of be around family. Though they've been the ones to get me where I am today. So I just wanted to be home with them. And yeah, I've been here in Arkansas, loving it so far.
Yeah, I'm sure it's helped you be like a little bit more comfortable with preparing for this whole draft process, does it not?
It does. So I decided not to go train at some type of facility. And, I decided to, one of my best friends in high school, he's now a coach at one of the local high schools. And I've been training with him. He opens up the field house for me every morning. And that's how I've been doing my training. And kind of that's someone who's been in my corner since I was 12 years old. And he's there for me right now. So it's been an awesome experience being home with him, my boy. And, for him to see me in this situation is just good for both of us.
Absolutely. It's great to have that guy in your corner. And before we get like real deep into the current times in NFL draft preparation and whatnot, I'm curious just because at least recently, we haven't talked a whole lot about your time at Vanderbilt, but how much did preparing for the next level play a role in your transferring from Vanderbilt to Louisville?
Yeah, so not many people know like how it happened. It's even hard for me sometimes to describe because it was kind of a fluid situation. Just so I played a little bit at guard at Vanderbilt. And then had some injuries. And then, senior year, I didn't play. I sat out to recover and then ended up losing a bunch of weight. And I was like, well, I still want to play. Why not go try and play tight end? I'm very fortunate for Coach Satterfield, Coach Holt, and Pete Nocta, to reach out to me and bring me in. And ultimately, I feel like it's helped me. Playing offensive line at Vanderbilt first. And then, I've had the training with Coach Ledford, Coach Holt, with playing tight end. And ultimately, I think that gives me kind of a leg up of, playing offensive line as well going into this draft.
So that's an interesting point you make there, and I want to get back to that part of the draft. But as you kind of talked about the weight side of things, so this wasn't I'm going to lose weight to try to shed to get to the tight end spot. This is something that just kind of happened naturally as you were recovering from injury, and you go from being close to 300 to more like 250, and you're like, all right, I got to figure I can do something else here now. Yeah.
So after I stopped playing junior year, I was kind of just staying away because I had some concussions. So it's not like, a physical injury where, it prohibits me from doing anything. But, I slowly saw myself go from like 287 to like 265, and I'm like fighting to keep this weight on.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, now that like I don't have this like unlimited training table, it's been tough. So it kind of happened naturally. And one of my roommates from Vanderbilt, Kyle Shermer, he kind of, had me out throwing with him all the time, just to work his craft. And, that added to me keeping in shape and continue to drop weight. So that's where that idea came from. Kyle one day was like, you should just go play tight end. And I was just like, all right, sure, let's do it.
Fantastic stuff there. So let me ask you this, a two-part question here. In terms of learning the position, how difficult was it for you to, go from blocking and being in a mindset of just trying to destroy the person in front of you? And I know in your role at Louisville, which we'll get into, you blocked a lot, but how did you go about developing the pass catching skills? Because we see the NFL, the modern tight end is a guy like, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, these guys, Kyle Pitts, obviously right now is what everybody's talking about. And I'm sure it was a little bit challenging for you to learn that position. And then how did Scott Satterfield and Louisville find out you were making that move? That's something I'm really curious. How does one find out that a former offensive guard has decided that he wants to play tight end?
Yeah, so I played tight end kind of in youth ball to start out, and then so I kind of always had just a knowledge of basic route running and basic coverages early on. It wasn't until high school until the offensive line coach said, hey, if you want to go play college ball, your size, you're gonna have to play offensive line. I was like, all right, let's do it. So that's how I played offensive line. And then so I got a part-time job in undergrad, and I'm sitting on break just in the back room, and Pete Nocta slides in my DMs, and he's like, hey Ian, are you still available? I see you're in the transfer portal. I was like, yeah, I'm not 300 pounds though, I'm 245 pounds. And he was like, whoa.
Wow.
And he's like, well, we needed offensive linemen, but we also need tight ends. And I was pretty taken back, because I was like, wow, like ACC school, like, because I had been in contact with a few smaller schools like FCS schools or UAB or something. And I didn't expect Louisville to come. And it kind of just kicked off from there. And then, I really have to thank Coach Holt, because he was looking for tight ends through the transfer market. Because there was only one guy on scholarship at the time. It was Jordan Davis. And then they put Marshawn on. But, there were tons of tight ends that have played the position who were in the transfer portal, and he could have taken on. But, he took a leap of faith on me. Very fortunate for that.
Absolutely. And considering how much blocking you did still, even when you weighed as much as you did, as much blocking as you did in Louisville's scheme, did that make things easier for you, considering your history as an offensive lineman in the SEC?
Yeah. So at Vanderbilt, we ran a lot of power, a lot of counter, a lot of zone. And at Louisville, it was strictly zone. So that's something that, we got really good at. I felt really comfortable doing, because, I mean, you're reaching guys or cutting guys off, that's pretty much the name of the game. And I definitely think my background playing offensive line helped that way, because, actually not many people know, but I spent a spring ball playing center at Vanderbilt. Wow. So at center, I was, lucky enough to kind of learn how to read defenses, like learn how, when safeties rotate, what does that mean for pressures? And, I was able to apply that playing tight end. If they're bringing this pressure, what does that mean for this outside linebacker? What's he going to do? And I really just think offensive line, gave me a leg up on other tight ends, and I think it still does. So.
And just a quick follow-up to that, how crazy is it that your first 3 catches, and we talked about how difficult it is to transition from just a purely blocking mindset to, trying to develop into a modern NFL type tight end, but how crazy was it that your first 3 catches at Louisville were all touchdowns?
Yeah. I mean, I still can't believe it. Sometimes when I like see videos or pictures, just the transformation I did, and, actually caught touchdowns, because I just, thought I was going to come in and, goal line, short yardage, get some first downs. But, the fact that I was able to score and there are tons of tight ends who make it to college and don't catch a touchdown at all, and I was fortunate to catch 4 of them. That's the thing about Louisville. I thought it was the perfect system for me to come in. It's simple, it's easy to learn, and I'm just thankful that I came in such a good situation.
Yeah, 2020 was one of the most interesting and I'm sure challenging football seasons and just years in life for everyone, but especially for college athletes. Take me back to this time last off season. It seemed at the time that you might not necessarily come back for a six year. That at least wasn't out there yet. So what was the off season like for you as COVID is starting to kind of hit? This pandemic is crazy. You guys are at home. What was kind of the decision making on your end of whether to play a 6th season or go ahead and try to go pro?
Yeah, so I had a lot of things going on last year. It was like, well, do I want to try and go pro on just 2 catches and 2 touchdowns for 7 yards? That doesn't happen much. And I was like, I could try it. We'll see. But then I was like, well, maybe I want to go work. I've got 2 great educations and some internship history. I can get a great job and go work. And then COVID hit, and there was just so many unknowns. Guys weren't having pro days. People were losing jobs that they once had secured, and I didn't know where my situation was going to be. And Coach Holt, he reached out to me one day and was like, "Hey, I know there's a lot of unknowns out there, but just know, you have a spot here if you want it." And it took me maybe 48 hours. And I was like, yep, I definitely feel comfortable going back. I've got something for sure. And, they were even like, we know you're an older guy and we can count on you getting your work done. They left a lot of responsibility up to me to kind of come in when I wanted to. But I decided, I definitely wanted to come in when everyone came in. I'm a big team guy first. And that's what I wanted to do. So.
And kind of speaking about COVID, obviously Louisville was hit relatively hard at times because of the pandemic. You had guys miss games, you had some miss several games, and like more often than not, the Cardinals were not at full strength. But just for you personally, how difficult was last season?
Yeah, it was tough because, like you said, we were hit pretty hard. There were always position groups going out, whether it had been D-line, linebackers, and sometimes some offensive linemen. And you're like, well, I was just sitting by that guy at the locker room. I was just sitting by him at breakfast. Like, I might get popped in 3 days. And then you're out for 2 games. It was definitely stressful because we knew that we were doing the right things in our bubble. But not everyone else outside of our bubble are doing the right things that, can put us at risk, whether that be at our apartments, at the grocery store, so it was definitely a tough time. I definitely thought, we managed it well with what we had. Obviously we didn't get the result in the season that we wanted and everyone else wanted, but I guarantee, they'll be back this year for sure.
And just as a quick follow-up to that, because of having to be so versatile and whatnot, was there ever any discussion where in an extreme emergency, maybe you would have to take some reps on the offensive line, considering your background?
Yeah, that was always the thing. I remember 2019 when we were preparing for the bowl game, Music City Bowl, and Mekhi Becton, he already stated that he was going to get prepared for the draft. And Adonis Boone, he was out with a toe injury. I think he had turf toe or something. And I would take my tight end reps, with the first team, and then second team, I was playing left tackle. And it was kind of a joke. I traded in my practice jersey for an offensive lineman jersey, and I was having fun with it. But that was always there. I remember Coach Holt always asked me. He said, "Hey, emergency situations, we might need you to go in and do something." Luckily, it never came because I didn't take a pass set at tackle, and I don't know how long. But it was, yeah. I mean, I'm always there for the team, whatever they needed me to do. But yeah.
Tell me about, a little bit more into the pandemic. Tell me about how the coaching staff kind of kept morale up when you have so much uncertainty and you guys are going and you're playing games with no fans. And, obviously games like Miami, Georgia Tech were a little bit more challenging because of the final outcome. How did they kind of balance morale and keep you guys up and ready for these games?
It was definitely tough. It was definitely like it's all on us kind of mindset. Coach Mike, he would always say, we're all we got. And from the beginning, it's never been about, what the fans think or what other people think. It's about us winning ball games. But I won't lie to you and say that it wasn't all on our minds that, well, shoot, if Malik goes out this week, are we going to win the game? It was definitely tough. And I think the coaches did a great job of, trying to be there for us, because there were other things going on in Louisville at the time that were very difficult on people. But the coaches were always there as like a resource or an outlet for us to talk to. And, because they were suffering the same things at home. But when we got into the building, it was like we're all family. So it was just having them as a resource and someone to talk to definitely helped.
You and Malik, it seemed like as the season went on, you guys really started to kind of pick up a strong rapport. Obviously with you and Marshawn, you guys were kind of switching around, and Marshawn was doing some more down the field stuff. They got some more passes to you down the field, and really were trying to kind of change the way it looked, at least to us, the common eye, that it looked like they were trying to get the tight ends more involved in the passing game. How did that come about in terms of, the offensive enhancements for you and the other tight ends getting more involved? And how much fun was it for you personally to evolve into a pass catching guy who gets to run an out route down the field? And I don't remember what game it was, and I know obviously the outcome wasn't, but Malik hits you with that down the streaker down the sideline that would have been a walk-in touchdown. How much fun was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. What definitely helps is, Marshawn getting hurt and he was hurt in camp, and that's where it all started. I always give him a hard time because he was the reason that I got more touches on offense, because once he went out, they wanted to experiment with me a little bit. That was last year's camp, and there was a time where I was catching 7-8 balls at practice, like in team periods, like couldn't be stopped. And I saw something on Twitter that was like, someone wanted to know what Coach Brew's like funniest story, and I remember Des Fitzpatrick came up to me and he was like just hyping me up, and he was like, yeah, Coach Brew in our offense was like, are you guys really gonna let an offensive guard outplay you guys and like be the leading receiver on offense? And I just thought that was pretty funny, but yeah, it was like Malik he's always been a great character. Me and him have always had a great relationship. And it definitely helps having that, who the guy who throws you the ball.
So you said you're back home in Bentonville, Arkansas, preparing training for the NFL draft. What's your training regimen been like? What's your day-to-day routine?
Yeah. So in the mornings, for pro day, it was a little different because you don't want to peak too early. You don't want to train too hard and maybe stress something, get hurt before pro day. But sort of the schedule was like, Mondays, it was an upper body day. You were an hour in the weight room and then an hour out in the field doing drills. And for me, that was either route drills or offensive line drills. And then Tuesday was 40 prep. And that was just training my starts and then also doing conditioning at the end. Wednesday was lower body day, and then an hour in the weight room and then an hour out in the field, just continue to do drills, catch balls in the jug machine. Thursday was 5-10-5 L drill work. And then Friday was kind of a hybrid legs and upper body, hour in the gym, hour out on the turf doing drills again. So that was kind of my regimen for 2 months. some people do it different. Some people lift 5 days a week, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to, get hurt or peak too early, really.
And how are you feeling about your chances of landing with a team and getting opportunity to compete in training camp? What have you heard from scouts and coaches on what they like and what you need to do to keep working on?
Yeah. So I went to the college gridiron showcase in January. That definitely helped put my name out a little bit more before pro day. And I got the Indianapolis Colts, they reached out, wanted to know more information, more contact information, and, draft day stuff. And then after pro day, I was approached by the Chargers, Lions, Panthers, and Cowboys. And they all came up to me and said that I ran really good routes. I was working hard, and they're really happy with my workout. So I kind of see myself as a situation as, who it's really going to come, like you mentioned earlier. A lot of people want the Kyle Pitts type, Travis Kelce, but there's still a lot of teams that are in the market for, that third or fourth tight end on the goal line who can play special teams. And I really think I can fit that mold. And if I don't get drafted late, then I'm really hopeful I can get sign a free agent deal. And I'm really pumped for that. So.
Yeah, fantastic. And for every Kyle Pitts and Travis Kelce, there's a Lee Smith, there's a Luke Wilson, there's these
Absolutely.
guys is there a guy that you kind of, obviously I know you played offensive lineman for a long time, but is there kind of a guy that you look up to in the NFL that maybe not the average fan knows because they're not really watching the blocking tight ends?
You mentioned it. A guy that I watched every Sunday was Lee Smith.
Hey, he'll maul somebody right out of the way on a 1 yard.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a nasty man.
Yeah, I like watching Lee Smith. I like watching Luke Stocker. Those are guys that, are in the trenches a lot, and they're not getting recognized because they're not catching the ball much. They do catch the ball some, but those are dudes that are just straight maulers, and they're very valuable to teams. And I think I can be the same type of value.
Yeah, well, fantastic stuff. Ean Pfeifer, former Louisville football tight end. We've got a couple more questions from you. We asked Twitter, try to solicit some questions here. So I want to kind of fire these off rapid style for you. And we'll start with Presley Meyer. He asked, what does Ian think about Louisville's tight end group this season outside of Marshawn Ford?
Boy, I have to give my boy Isaac a shout out. He's been a guy who I've connected with early on, and he just works harder than anyone I know. And I keep nudging him to learn some on the ball stuff, but he wants to stay in the backfield. That's where he's comfortable. But I think that dude, is going to be a phenomenal fullback type body. And I think, even though Marshawn gets a lot of touches, I think Isaac has a type of work ethic and talent to be a fullback in the NFL. Not many people talk about it, but me and him have talked about it, and that's someone who I think is going to be really impressive. Also, Francis Sherman and Des Melton are two young guys that are going to just they've gotten playing time early, and as their first years on the field, and to think where they're going to be in 3 years, I have no doubt the tight end room is going to be really good. So.
And this next one's from Tugboat 47. You talked earlier about how you feel really good about your chances to, land with a team and compete in training camp and whatnot. But could you see yourself maybe, getting drafted or in the back end? And if so, where could you see yourself being drafted?
I've been asked this a lot. Where do I want to be drafted? And I think the easy answer is Tampa Bay, obviously.
I love the honesty, because most people would just say anywhere.
Yeah.
I'll play, which obviously we know is the truth. But
yeah, obviously
who wouldn't want to go to Tampa?
Obviously, you want to get drafted, but playing with Gronk and Tom Brady and learning from those guys would just be an opportunity that you don't get often.
Well, so. I'm sure it'd be awesome to be catching passes from the GOAT year one.
Absolutely. I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah,
who wouldn't want that?
You're catching those goal line touchdowns out there, and sometimes if I didn't see the Pfeiffer on the last name, I would think you're Cameron Braid. So it's a perfect segue for you playing in Tampa, man.
Yeah.
All right, next one here. This is from Kara the Explorer. She asks, "What's his favorite memory outside of the stadium in Louisville?" So, what's your kind of like one memory from this just being in the city of Louisville that'll kind of stand with you as you go on? It's not Nashville. I know Louisville's not Nashville, but
yeah. No, I mean, what is my favorite memory? Yeah, so it was my first summer there. Not knowing many people, and like I said, Isaac, getting close with Isaac. We went to the Downs after dark over at Churchill Downs, and that's just something I've never even seen a horse race before. It was just a really cool atmosphere with the the concerts and the food and just watching horse races. And that's something you don't get anywhere else. And it was a real special time, and it was just a real great opportunity for me to go see that.
Fantastic. All right, last one here, Matt. Go ahead.
Yeah, and this final question comes from our sister podcast, the Red Chips podcast, which talks more specifically about Louisville recruiting and whatnot. What made Satterfield's recruiting pitch to you special, and what ultimately sold you on coming to the Ville?
So it was a little different for me because I was 22 years old, and I'm not like a 17, 18-year-old kid coming out of high school. Like, I don't need to see the locker room, and I don't need to see the type of gear I'm going to be getting. And what really sold me was when I was sitting in my meeting with Satterfield, and he was like, "Listen, we have one tight end on scholarship, and we do a lot of 12 and 13 personnel." And he was like, "I don't know where else you're looking, but I guarantee, they probably have more guys on the roster, more guys that are going to play." And he was like, "You have an opportunity to come in and start day one." And that's all I needed to hear, just, an opportunity where I'm going to come in and be able to play right away, was really special. And, it wasn't a lie, it happened. I came in and started against Notre Dame, and it was just a real crazy experience. But, he's been truthful, and very transparent since day one.
And just a quick follow-up question to that. I know it's not a fan question, but I'm just curious personally. What was it like coming into Louisville and you're starting day one against Notre Dame?
I still can't even process it. Sometimes, people talk about making the move from offensive line to, a different position. It doesn't really happen much. And, I was able to put pieces together. And, I'm not trying to dog Vandy or anything, but I haven't seen a crowd above 20,000 people. And, to come into Louisville and there's, over 60,000 people there, it was just unreal. And, that's something, you asked the question, what's my biggest memory off the field? Well, that's probably my biggest memory I'll take away in football is that first game against Notre Dame, just the atmosphere. And, I just loved every second of it.
And I'm sure you heard a little bit about what happened in Louisville in 2018 with the 2-10 record. And so that Notre Dame game, I was in attendance, and it's one of the most special games I've ever attended, even though obviously Louisville lost. But that first couple of minutes when Louisville was up, when you guys were up 14-7, was something that I did not expect. And I think it really just kind of re-energized the fan base. Yeah. And obviously the 8-5 season really helped with that as well. But it is a moment I'll never forget, somebody who's been a lifelong Louisville fan. Ian Pfeifer, former Louisville tight end, hopefully soon to be playing on an NFL roster. And we thought you'd play here for forever. We really were expecting that 7th year, but we can't hold that against you, man. There's very few 24, 25-year-olds at the college level. So congrats on a career at Vandy and Louisville, and best of luck with your NFL draft preparation, my friend.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Another huge thank you to Ean Pfeifer for joining us on From the Pink Seats. Please be sure to give us a follow, subscribe, anywhere you get your podcasts from, as well as check out our other great State of Louisville podcasts, including Third and Central, hosted by Matt McGavick, Starting 502, hosted by Will Reddington and Presley Meyer, and the Red Chips podcast. We'll catch up with you next week. Pretty.